buenas tardes, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love you guys extend and share with me. From the heart, gracias. And to get into the story on hand real fast, well, in this one, I want to keep my word, on doing the profile to finish up on the three mosqueteros de la muerte, as they used to call them out here, right? And again, it's because I started with the Torres brothers, right? And one thing led to another, but on this one, I want to touch on the last one that, in all fairness, I think that for being a young bug, per se, right, he had him well set on him, at least till the end, right? But anyways, I want to touch on Chino Antrax. And again, it's for my personal knowledge or point of view, right? Well, first and foremost, Chino Antrax, the first time that I ever heard of him was, he was doing his thing as a kid, right? We're talking about kids. I remember I was like 12, so that fool must have been 9, 10. But anyway, his family, they came from Sonora. They weren't from out here in Culiacan, right? But they had some bomb tacos, when it came por la salida del Dorado, right? Anyways, that fool, he was in a little gang, if you want to call it that, right? Of vagos, as we all were, right? But in Culiacan, and within time, he was. It's what's all you know out here, right? He was raised in Culiacan, so that's all you see, which is to start, growing and moving pebbles around, right? And, the story really with him is with El Gordo, right? How he got in. They knew each other real good. To what extent, I remember there was a time where Sinaloa was, I'm not gonna say all love, but it was more secure when it came to family, right? You seen what you see now, everybody hiding their families, because of things turn out. Back then you seen like Zambadas out doing their thing, being bagos. The Guzmanes, the Familia, Los Torres, XXX, just what later on flourished to have power out here, basically. It wasn't like that, It was everybody knew each other, because, Culiacan's big, but it ain't that big, right? But anyways, getting back, he got noticed by El Gordo. It's a real famous story if you're ever out here, right? Which is, Chino used to like graffiti, tagging on walls, right? Because again, he was in the little gang, if you want to call it that, right? Which he was just basically boggles, right? That they weren't clicked up from the gate, right? To families. But anyways, where he messed up is he graffitied a car, right, from the Zambadas. And real early, that's how, basically they told him they were gonna stomp a man, right, as a kid, and he said to go ahead and handle it. And that's when he became friends with El Gordo. One thing led to another, however it led, amongst them. They became real close. See, a lot of people associate Chino with the Antrax already, or with Vicente, but nah. Where he started doing big moves was with Gordo. I had a cousin, rest in peace. They used to call him Momia out here, right, for certain reasons, but nevertheless, he had a little thing going, right? He had a couple camiones and reaching different angles, and he was real close with El Gordo, right, at one time, as with El Chino. But Chino started utilizing the friendship with El Gordo in the sense of they started buying trucks de pollos, literally raw chickens, right? And Chino started utilizing it. Keep in mind, this is way before anything would come up to flow, right? He was already doing his thing. One time you could say he was under El Gordo, but he was doing his own thing. When he started with Macho Prieto and Ondeado, he was on his own, basically, right? Due to how they dealt with the Charritos, or certain other people. That's how he was basically trusted with the one that was supposed to stay with the whole Zambada around Fla, right? Which was Vicentillo. And I'm not gonna repeat the story that everybody knows, right? He took care of Vicentillo. I want to touch on something that's not really out there, right? I know a lot of people speak about the time that Aretes tried to take out Vicentillo in Tijuana, and about the time in Mazatlan, but there was a third time here in Culiacan, right? It happened out there. It's a little town called Tizate. If you're not from out here, you don't know it, right? But anyways, they were out there and they basically tried to take him out. Again, Chino wasn't that old, but he knew what his responsibilities was, right? And he took one for Vicentillo, and that's what really opened the doors for him, right? Everybody knows Vicentillo was supposed to again get the ropes of everything from the Zambadas, right? And Esa Vicentillo is the one that blessed him with opening up a group of sicarios underneath him that he named the Antrax. And it was just, he had that mentality, right? Of being on the street, being vago. You could say game banging if you want to say it that, right? Tagger. So, yeah, they were real known at first, right? Whenever you heard the Antrax were after you, was like, basically death was coming for you. So that's what it started. But of course, at least with me, and it has nothing to do with the way he actually went out, right? But I was already busted when it happened, right? But when he went after Francisco, I believe, from the Aretes, that's a gangster move. You gotta respect it, because he really put himself out there. I mean, to go out to Cabos just with another individual in a little truck, dressed as a clown, walk up in the party by yourself, straight, look in the face to the individual. And a lot of people, they always speak about how they had words before them. They didn't have words. The only words that came out of Chino's mouth was basuras, and he clipped him. He clipped him from the gate. But he was just that individual, right? Because the way I heard it, is he stated he shot one to the dome and he stood over him and then he unloaded the rest. Keep in mind, this is a party of the Arellano Felix that he's walking in by himself. Nevertheless, the chaos erupts and he gets away. And you guys can imagine what type of power it gave this individual, out here in Culiacan, in Sinaloa, period. When they busted him, he had I would say about 5 different avenues, routes that came out of Culiacan to, you guys know, and about 8 avenues that belonged to him that came straight from Central and South America. The Zambadas weren't touching nothing he was making on this tool. Oh yes, he responded to the Zambada family. You guys gotta remember when Vicentillo decided to turn himself in, right? Because Vicentillo one time requested permission from El Chapo and Zambada to turn himself in and snitch. They allowed it. They okayed it. Chino was never okay with it. I remember problems started with Mayo, right? Way before he got arrested, Chino. And because they had words. Zambada and Chino thought he was basura. In reality, it was just him feeling bigger than what he had, to be sincere, because still Zambada's kid, right? And doing his own thing, but he didn't have that type of power. Yeah, he had a crew strong underneath him. But second thing, right before it went off to Holanda, right? Was a party, right, in an hacienda. This hacienda is still active till this day, right? And this party, basically the Antrax were there, Chapitos, remain of Zambada's kids, right? Serafin and them. And got into it with Van, right? De los Chapitos. Only get into it, but since there was always this going forth of quién es el más chingón type of thing between Guzmanes and Zambadas, right, amongst them, Chino felt he had that, right? Because whatever went through his head, right? But he slapped Ivan, literally slapped him, bitch slapped him in front of everybody, and he took off. When from there, he actually flew to Cabos, but it's this spot in Baja California Sur, excuse me. And he basically, there's this food they call it tortas, right, for the muscles. And he went out there and smoked them. And he decided to do some things together and fly to Holanda. You see, really, us Zambadas to take him out. He felt our corrupts, right? He felt strong enough to take on the big boys. And if he would have bucked up outright, to be sincere, he would have held his ground. A lot of groups at this time, right? But for example, the others were gone, Nacho Prietos were gone. Had all these other little groups that he had it, right? Of course, not against the mistake he had done by slapping Ivan, to be sincere. And then to go, Damaso was still in good at this time, right? And then he takes off to Holanda to laugh it off. But here we have history repeating itself, right? Why do you guys think the Federicos were waiting for him before he landed? You see, when push came to shove, a little argument supposedly with Vicentillo, the jefe said, let's sweep it under the rug, no es nada. Vicentillo se fue, you have more value for me here, right? And of course, just to pump an individual up. I mean, when I was there to hear Pili say that to one, you'd be lying if you say it didn't pump you up, right? In whatever dumb sense that is, right? So, when he slapped the compadre's son, Mayo's basically the one that told him, vete pa allá, descansa, let me deal with the, basically, yo macho. Let me deal with everything, I'll tell you when to come back. But he's the one that told him where to go, where he'll be safe, to kick it and everything. You make sure to square things up, but before he went, he wanted El Chino to open cancha where Torta was holding it for Guzman's. You see, Chino was just following orders. He went out there, who you guys think told on him to turn him in? Cause, I'll be honest, Zambada didn't want to go to war with the Antrax at this time. And it's exactly what it would have happened if something would have happened to El Chino. But he played his cards right. You see, a snake knows exactly how to play his venom, right? He turned El Chino in to take heat off him. I te entregué I turning, giving you one of my strongest soldados, ahí está, just to keep you in good word with me. At the same time, he sets new structure for the Antrax to the point where Chino's word just don't mean nothing no more, right? And then he starts spreading this rumor, and I gotta tell you, it came from this individual. No buts, I heard it firsthand. Now he was working with the feds. He had something in him to give locations via GPS, which, I ain't co-signing for Chino. It's the way they play it, to be sincere. Remember, I always say, there's trash out here. So I don't doubt it, right? That Chino, but as far as I know, I remember my family, well, they did a couple things, right? Again, my cousin, rest in peace, right? And basically, when El Chino was heading down here, he was too brave for his own good, right? He called in to El Mayo and told him, I'm on my way. He knew he had been set up, and he wanted to go to war with El Mayo. But you see, El Mayo was always one of them cowards, sorry I say it like that, right? Because when El Chino got there, who do you guys think protected El Chino's sister, location, and everything? By this time, Ivan had a lot of power. See, it wasn't the Zambadas that did the dirty work. Zambadas gave El Chino's location up when he arrived. Instead of going and bucking up with him the way he was requesting, they would have took him out regardless, right? But he gave him to Ivan and the Chapitos. They're the ones that actually dealt with that. But you guys see the Tres Mosqueteros of death, and I'll leave it like this. Are you guys getting a little idea how Mexico works behind the scenes? Yeah, it's a whole different animal when it comes to violence, right? No doubt, but you see how politics work. They were one of the most savage sicarios from Culiacan at one point, right? Amongst many. But who gave every single one of them up to get killed? To wash his hands, to stay in good grace with government by ratting. It's part of Mexico, right? It's how it works. And yeah, before everybody sends me a message, I know, I'm making people mad, but I run it through someone beforehand, I know. This is all facts out here in Culiacan, That's why right now you're seeing how many people are being taken advantage of, hurt, supposedly because El Mayo got turned in, when in reality, man, I won't get into that, I'll continue with the profiles. You gotta give it to El Chino though, He pulled one of them moves as a sicario that not too many people would, right? Or tell me, do you know people to go into a party, specifically of Darellano Felix, look at somebody in the face and take him out by looking at him and then getting out with no scratch? But as you see, at the end of the day, that has no value either. When you sum it down to the end, it's all the same, right? Muy buenas noches, my prayers to everyone.